Now, one of my favourite movies for a long time ago, I think it was back in the 90s, was a movie called The Madness of King George. It was the story of the King of England who was going slightly nuts. In fact, pretty nuts. And while I doubt that the same affliction is currently affecting the Queen of Queensland, tonight I want to focus on the madness of Queen Palaszczuk. Now, as you've heard, without doubt, the most moving bit of telly that you've seen in the past little while is that poor bloke who thought he might have a chance of being able to see his mum before she passed away, but because of the madness of Queen Palaszczuk, he wasn't allowed to see her.
The point I want to make right now is this point about compassion.
Yeah.
These are supposed to be compassionate policies, but I think these policies are very confused about what compassion means.
Poor bloke. But as for the response of the Mad Queen today, this is what she had to say after the cruelty of her policies, the cruelty of her rules, has yet again been shown to the nation.
There's people apply for, there's hundreds of exemptions that people are applying for, and they're trying to process them as quickly as possible, and that's exactly why I've asked there for to be more people in that unit. It's not nice, and it's not nice during a pandemic. I know that there's people overseas in other parts of the world too that sometimes families here can't go and get to see either. It's awful.
Yeah, save me the fake whimper in the voice. Why do I say that the madness of Queen Palaszczuk is the theme of tonight? Apart from the craven political response to what is taking place too often with Queenslanders not being able to be with their family members. And think about this from your end. If you are a Queenslander watching right now, how would you feel if it was your son, your daughter, who wasn't able to come home when you were in your final hours? It's madness. It truly is offensive. But equally offensive is the media strategy of the Queen, where the promise is, look, there are so many people putting in applications that we need to make sure that there are more people to deal with the applications. And I'm promised there's going to be more people to do it. Only problem is this is a lie. Why? Because I've seen this song before. You see, when you talk as relentlessly as I do about any one particular leader and their faults, you remember the things that happened in the past. She made exactly the same promise in September last year. In September last year, when she was yet again caught out being on the wrong side of compassion, the wrong side of humanity, this is what she said. Spot the difference from today. There's none.
Individual exemptions where people are looked at on compassionate grounds and the circumstances of every individual case. I've asked my Director General to see if we can put some more staff there. I think it's absolutely crucial that, we have as many staff that are needed to deal with these complex and heartbreaking issues.
That was September. Now, if you are somebody who's in the Queensland media and you put together a television story that was about this today, or have written a newspaper article, or reported about this on radio, how did you not remember that this is exactly what happened back in September? That the promise of more people to deal with these applications is a lie. Now, either it is a lie or even worse, they didn't put enough people in place, which meant how many families that we haven't heard about on television haven't been able to spend those final days together. Now, we know that the PPE exists, and we know that there are ways to make sure that these families can have their moments. Worst case scenario, an overseas return traveller, who's an Australian, by the way, would end up giving COVID to somebody who's going to die in the next couple of days anyway. It's garbage. You know it, and I know it. But this heartless Queen, who has been re-elected, and handsomely so, by the people of Queensland last year because she was able to pretend that the tragedies that happened to everyone else's families, well, they didn't really matter because they weren't happening to your family. Remember when she said this in response to a woman who ended up being in a situation where she ended up losing one of her babies because she was afraid she'd be turned away from the Queensland border?
People living in New South Wales, they have New South Wales hospitals. In Queensland, we have Queensland hospitals for our people.
Alas, this heartless, craven, stupid politician, has got another example of how she plays the media, who end up doing her bidding and never hold her feet to the fire. This is what she said about the death of a police officer who died doing his duty a couple of weeks ago in Queensland, an officer who deserves a full, proper funeral. Of course, the bit that you saw on the 6pm news was this.
And in relation to the COVID Safe Plan, look, that's a matter between police and Dr Young, recognising that we are in this situation at the moment.